Well, hello the new. It's only me, Leonard Wells, broadcasting as usual from here in the Gigglemill in Haslingden, north of Manchester in the UK. The Gigglemill, as you know, is state of the art. That means IMAX and 3D got nothing on us. Harry Potter, eat your heart out. So watch out for the dazzling special effects. Sound, vision, you name it, we've got it. Today we're going to continue with the politically incorrect stories, but this time we will illustrate how some nations favour others, and in these particular tales you get a clue as to why the Irish are considered very cute. We have three tales for you, and I hope you'll smile from one of them. If you don't, you need an undertaker. Right, here we go. That'll be 7 o'clock. It's these oaks, you know, they keep you as regular as a clock. Now, in the first story, this concerns a building site, and it was a very busy building site, huge building site, and the foreman was the guy who decided who got the jobs. And this particular day he was in a really grouchy mood. Oh, terrible. His mother-in-law was coming round for the week, and he'd had a row with the wife, and he'd forgotten the shopping, and his cash machine card wouldn't work. Everything he could imagine. One of his tyres was punctured. Oh, so when three men turned up for a job, he was determined none of them was going to get it. So it turned out to be an Englishman, a Frenchman and an Irishman. So he says to the Englishman, he said, now, if you can lift that big 3-ton boulder over there with one hand, he says, I'll give you the job. So of course he couldn't, and he didn't get the job. So he says to the Frenchman, if you can use this teaspoon to move that big heap of sand over there in 2 minutes flat, I'll give you the job. Of course, Frenchman, he says, ah, c'est impossible, monsieur. Oh, terrible, and formidable, and all the other ables and whatever. And when he came to the Irishman, he said to the Irishman, he says, now, he said, you see that wheelbarrow there, he said, if you can wheel a wheelbarrow full of smoke around the yard, he said, I'll give you the job. So the Irishman says, sure, he says, there's no trouble at all. He says, you just fill the wheelbarrow with smoke, and he says, I'll be off. Thank you. In the second little tale, a school teacher was teaching a little bit of ornithology about the birds and the bees. And talking about the birds, one's pupil was English, one was French, and one was Irish. And she said to these three, can you tell me which bird in England doesn't make a nest? So they all thought about it, and the Englishman says, I know, teacher. He said, a cuckoo. So the French pupil also said, the cuckoo, madame, cuckoo, c'était moi, cuckoo. So when she goes to the Irish people, he says, yeah, sure enough, he says, it was the cuckoo. And she thinks he just copied the other two, so she says, why, what makes you say it's the cuckoo? He says, sure to be got it. He says, everybody knows a cuckoo lives in a clock. Thank you. And in the final little tale, an Englishman, an Irishman and a Frenchman went to Canada to become lumberjacks, and they turned up on this lumberjack site in this camp, this forest camp, and asked the foreman for a job. So he gave each one an axe. He always liked to do the practical things, this particular foreman. He said, now off you go into the woods, he said, and 2 hours from now I'm coming to see what you've got, how you've got on chopping trees down. So away they went, and 2 hours later he set off, and he came to the Englishman, and 100 huge trees were all perfectly flattened on the ground, stacked beautifully. And he said, that's great. He said, that's That's more than anybody's ever done in an hour, he said. But when he came to the Frenchman had done 200 trees in an hour. And they were all neatly stacked. And he said, blimey, he said, that's fantastic. He said, you probably got the job. He said, I'm just going now to see what the Irishman's done. So when he gets to where the Irishman was, he'd done 500 trees. And they were all beautifully stacked. So he says to the Irishman, he said, are you sure nobody helped you? He says, I'm positive, sir. He says, where did you learn about lumberjacking then? He says, where did you learn the technique of knocking all these trees down so fast? He said, sure, in the Sahara Desert, sir. And the foreman looked at him, he says, in the Sahara Desert? He said, there's no trees in the Sahara Desert. He said, of course there's no trees. He says, I've been there for 10 years. Thank you, and goodbye for now. Thank you.